And I know you guys are like traveling. You promote yourself as traveling photographers.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite destinations that you've been to?
Lake Tahoe is definitely up there. Lake Tahoe was just gorgeous. Scenery is beautiful. The weather was amazing. Vegas is actually a really nice place to photograph, but more outskirts. Red Rock Canyon is probably one of my top places. And I would say our editing style has really been inspired by that.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Yen podcast. I think this is episode 12. Starting to lose track, which is a good thing, which means we've got some under our belt now. So today I'm here with Noah and Jez, and we connected off Threads. You guys are like the third or fourth people that I've actually gotten off Threads. So shout out to Threads. Meta, you're doing a good job with the algorithm. So guys, why don't you just start off by introducing yourselves and telling everyone a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so we're Noah and Jez. We're a couple based out of Pittsburgh, PA. We do wedding photography and gone to fashion photography this past year too, which is really cool. And that's pretty much what we do right now.
Nice. What about you, Noah? What's your story?
I'm just here because I look good.
Yeah,
I'm a pretty face. They keep me around.
I love it.
No, like Jess said, us personally, we've been together since we were 16 and 14. So we've been together for a lifetime, and we're still young. But
How old are you guys now?
yeah, so we're 28 and
Nice.
26.
Whoa.
Yeah.
dude, this is crazy. So we're basically just now meeting, just so everyone knows. Like, we only had a brief conversation. So I met my wife when I was 17 and she was 16. And we're married now, obviously, my wife. And I'm 28 and she's 27. So super similar. And we work together.
So people are witnessing a best friendship. So
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
what we're getting at.
Yeah, the only person we're missing is Amanda. Next time.
Yeah, get her next time. We'll do like a couple podcasts.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think the time.
Yes.
We'll put her right in the middle, and you can just
That's
interview.
perfect. She's only 5 foot, so she'd be perfect right there.
Little Amanda sandwich. Yeah. So we met young, got married right when Jez turned 18. So we've been married 8 years,
Nice.
and been doing photos for 3 years, 2 or 3 years
Nice.
officially. But we've always been artistic. So we've always done things ever since we were in high school. We've always done entrepreneurial things forever. So this is our first sort of take it business or being creative or creating something, but it's sort of been our take on doing the creative side that we wanted, being able to make art, being able to do something that we're passionate about, but then also something that's a business and entrepreneurial.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing photography specifically? And, I'll let you answer that. Then I have a second part too. But you guys can answer that question first.
Photography specifically, I mean, I've always played around. I feel like we both have always played around just because we've been creative. But a lot of people, they'll say, oh, it's my passion since I came out of the womb, and it's like, not really, For us specifically, we actually got into it because we started modeling in 22 as a couple, and that built a lot of relationships with other photographers, which was really awesome.
Gotcha.
And so from there, it kind of just spiraled into starting photography, which wasn't ever on our list of things to do. If you told us when we moved here, be like, hey, you're going to be wedding photographers in 2025, I tell you, yeah, that's wild. No, we don't even use a camera. What do you mean? So yeah.
That's cool. So what did you guys, Noah mentioned that you guys were both creative. What did you guys do like growing up? Were you into like painting or drawing or anything?
We were
creative?
just into all of it.
Yeah.
Anything that we could do. I mean, from sculpting, drawing, painting, I think we just did all sorts of mediums, and there's mediums we thought, we're not that good at, some mediums that we're really good at. And that was always a really big connector for us, was art. And that was always our goal, was, hey, we're going to make a living off of some sort of art. We just didn't know what it was. And so it's been really cool to see photography be that path for us, because it just wasn't ever a goal.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty awesome. Did you guys know like that you wanted to work together? Like, was that always the goal?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we were probably like you and your wife.
Yeah.
We were just attached at the hip.
Yeah.
Since we met.
That's totally how we were too.
Yeah, it's like, and I see that. I mean, if you guys are in business together, it's probably the exact same thing. So like,
Yeah.
we've had a bunch of jobs that we've worked for the same companies and did the same things like at the same time. And some couples are like, hey, we need our time apart where we're at work or we're doing our thing, and then we can come over and have time together. We haven't been that way.
Yeah,
and
we're
who
I'm
knows
right there with
that
you
will change.
because we're the same way. We are like literally attached at the hip too. People like growing up too are always be like, ever since you met Amanda, you're literally always with Amanda. I'm like, well, she's my favorite person, so why wouldn't I always be with her?
Exactly.
If I could choose who to be with, why not be with Amanda?
Yes.
Yeah.
So have you guys had seasons where that's maybe not the case, where you're like, hey, maybe in this season I'm super passionate about this thing, and you notice yourself going in one direction, her going in another direction, or you've sort of always, at least so far, been.
That's a
Or
great
in
question. So, trying to think what year it would have been. So she graduated high school in 2016. I graduated in 2015. So there was a time where she went to Mount Union, which is a college in Ohio, and she wanted to be a PA. So I don't know how to say this. So she was heavily influenced by like her parents, not like in a bad way. They just wanted her to like be successful and like have a good career and things like that. So she went there. I think a lot of it was like external pressures to like be in the medical field or whatever. So long story short, she went there for like a year and a half. And then her mom ended up getting a job at Geneva College, which is in Beaver Falls, if you guys know where that's at.
Okay.
Long story short, like $40,000 a year versus free tuition. So she transferred and also at the same time decided that she really liked marketing or in business in general because she was working at the Marriott in Monaca. And she was 18, 19 working there. And she was literally like the GM there because her GM actually had like lupus. So she was like, you never really knew how she was going to feel. So a lot of times everyone looked to Amanda for like direction. And I think she technically was promoted to like a manager position. And then she was basically looked at as like the stand-in GM, but she was only 18, 19. So the guys running the hotel were like not wanting to give her a raise. And I kept telling her, I was like, this is how I talked to her. I was like, bro, I was like, listen, I was like, just leave them and come do business with me. So that was always like kind of the plan anyway, when she decided that she wanted to go more like the business route. So then we just like basically dove right in.
Well, so she's 19, you're 20 at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was somewhere between 19, 20 or like, I don't even know. However the year fell, but just around that age. Yeah.
Well, so I'm assuming based on what you said, she's probably pretty close with her parents.
Yeah.
So what
yeah,
was
very
that
close.
like, right? So like, she's like going to be in PA. It's like daddy's little girl or whatever it is,
Yeah.
you know, and then she's like, all right, I'm going to go to marketing. They're probably like, all right. And then she's like, next year, like, hey, my boyfriend and I'm going to quit. We're going to go into business. So was that turmoil for that season, or were you already pretty successful or on that path?
No, yeah, that's a great question. So
I'm interviewing you, by the way.
No, I love this. This is the first time. So there's been another guest that like asked me a lot of questions. Shout out to Bree, episode 3, which is funny because she's very artistic. She does murals too. So maybe a trend here with the artistic people. But anyway, so I started doing like, my dad taught me how to do eBay when I was like 6. And we lived in Massachusetts. Then we moved here when I was 7. And then long story short, I was always around like estate sales and yard sales. And my dad taught me how to buy and sell basically. And especially when like iPods and iPhones came out, like I could look anything up.
Yep.
Because at the beginning I started off just selling like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon cards and things like that. Things that I actually knew about. Yeah, exactly. Things I knew about. And then gradually that evolved into, I know that an old telephone with like, I'm drawing a blank. Like, the dial phone. I was like, dial phones are worth $40 if I get it for $2, things like that. So growing up, I was always around that. And then when I turned 18, my parents were like, you need to do something like besides eBay. Like I was making probably way more on eBay than most people were making, like working at Walmart my age.
Yeah.
But anyway, they wanted me to get like the experience of working for someone too. So my dad hooked me up with one of the estate sale owners that we knew. And I worked for her and I did like mostly like the clean out portion of it. I literally worked like a 12-hour day and she gave me like $80 at the end of the day. And I was so mad. And I was like, I literally went home. I remember talking to me and I was like, I'm literally going to start my own estate sale company because I'm so mad right now. So that's what I did.
Did you get best dibs on the stuff when you were
Yeah. So actually,
you're like putting like the good stuff.
Oh wait, that's actually a big part of the story I didn't even think about. So there was this industrial light that was there. And I've bought and sold a lot of like different like lamps and lights in the past. So I was like, I know this thing is like worth probably a couple $100, which I ended up selling it for like $300. And afterwards,
an
like
industrial light, like a
so
spotlight.
No,
or are we talking like an MCM, like lamp or something?
It was like probably what this would have been.
Okay,
like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was made in New York. It was super cool.
Like a specialized piece of equipment.
Yeah, exactly. So I sold that for like $300, and I was like, to my parents, I was like, this is proof. Like, I just made $80 for 12 hours of my time versus $300 for like an hour of
That was like the one that gave you the bug then where
Yeah.
like it clicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, I started the estate sale company when I was like in between 18, 19. It did really well. Then my dad got involved, and I gave him the company eventually because I got into real estate. And I started a moving company, and we started a furniture store because it all kind of like coincided with each other. Then I like encouraged Amanda to start a cleaning company, so she did that. And then, long story short, there's a lot in there with like COVID and stuff like that, and things that happened with like the furniture store because we signed the lease literally a week before the lockdown. Which when we finally were able to open up, it actually went well, but. Long story short, after all the businesses, me and Amanda, we both have our degrees in marketing too. And I was like, all right, we love the startup process. We love the branding. We love like promoting. We have our marketing degrees, so we might as well just start it. And it's actually funny because before we did it together, there was like a short period. There was a girl from our college. She like started one called Social Bee, and they did it for like literally, it was like a couple of days. And then it just like didn't work out. So I was like, let's just do it together.
Okay.
And it worked out. Yeah. So that's kind of the backstory. I can't remember what the original question was, but I think
Good. That means that you did a good job. No, that's really cool. It's cool to hear that you guys have been through a lot. You learn a lot from each of those little things that you do. It's really cool.
Yeah. Oh wait, I remember your original question. Well, it was about the turmoil with like family and stuff. And I think her parents seeing like that I was always like finding a way to make money. They like knew I wasn't like going into it like blindly. And also the fact that we were together for like, since we were like 16 and 17, I think they felt like they knew we were probably going to end up getting married one day. So I think like that all helped. So if I was just like some guy that came along and like a week later, we did everything that we did, they probably would have been like, whoa, slow your roll.
Yeah. Or if you're like a bum, right? Like you have nothing to show for it. You're just always like, oh, you're working at Taco Bell or whatever, but you're like never actually doing anything.
Exactly.
And they'd probably be like, yeah, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So because of the past stuff, they were like cool with it.
Yeah.
So,
And shout out to people who work at Taco Bell.
Exactly.
That's not big. I love Taco Bell too.
Yeah, Taco Bell's good. Even though their prices are just as much as Chipotle now, I feel like.
No kidding. But they're worth it.
Yeah, true. It's very true.
A little Taco Bell late Taco Bell run.
I know. You can never go wrong with the late Taco Bell run. And back in the day, we used to go to Eaton Park at like 1 a.m. when they were open 24/7. I'm not like a huge Eaton Park fan, but
okay, I'm an Eaton Park hater.
Yeah, I would say I'm really not a huge fan. All I get from them is like, it's called the Super Burger because you can't really mess it up. It's literally just a cheeseburger.
Yep.
So we used to get that at like 1 a.m.
But I'm also fake. I'll explain the Eaton Park. Have you been to Eaton Park as a kid, maybe? Okay. I'm not from here.
Yeah.
We're both from the West Coast. Jess from California. I'm from Las Vegas.
Nice.
But she would come out here and visit family at like once a year in the summer, and she'd spend a week out here. Her grandparents are out here. She has an aunt and uncle out here.
Yeah.
So she was familiar with Eaton Park and all the things. They all live in Greensburg. But I'd never been out here. And so we visited for a week. And we're like, all right, we're going to move to Greensburg. Adventure of life. Let's do it. And so, yeah, then I was introduced to Eaton Park. And I walked in, and I don't know, this is probably like a little bit post-COVID, so there was probably a lot going on. And it was just not a great experience. And I was like, nope, I'm cool off Eaton Park. I get it. It's a local staple, but it's not for me, man.
No, yeah, I know what you mean. It's definitely not a place I would think of as like a gourmet meal or fine dining. It's like a quick thing to get, or like it was just cool when it was open late. But yeah, now I don't know the last time I've been to Eaton Park.
Okay, it's not just me. And I say it's fake because I judged it on one experience. So I'm sure there's great ones out there, but yeah, not my vibe.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I go to Taco Bell instead.
So what was it like? So you guys are from the West Coast.
Yeah.
What was it like? The creative scene obviously out there is probably a lot bigger than out here. So tell me what that transition was like going from there to Pittsburgh.
Good question. I'll let Jez answer, else I'll hog this whole entire thing.
Yeah, sounds good.
So what's interesting is we didn't start photo until we moved here, and we built our entire community here, mainly in Pittsburgh, and it's kind of moved around to all different states. But I really can't imagine starting out on the West Coast just because I've heard things about places like Utah, which it's so popular that people go and they'll photograph and do videography there and do retreats and all these things. But it just it's so saturated. When people talk about, oh, why would you get into photography here? Like the market's so saturated. I just think it's not saturated. Especially because every photographer or every creative is so different. So you're selling you. I mean, they really want your work too, but you're selling yourself because it's a personal business. And so when someone is hiring us for photo, they're not just hiring us, they're hiring us as a couple or us as an individual. And to see how different the markets are is really crazy. But the nice thing is to start that here and then be able to travel and say, hey, you know, we're going to be here if anyone wants to book a session, and be able to grow the business anywhere and photograph anywhere we go is really cool. So I would say we don't really know what the creative space is like. I'll say growing up in Vegas is really cool just because there is a lot more opportunity for people to make art, to sell art. They would have this thing I don't know if Pittsburgh has anything like it, but there's an art district in Vegas in downtown. And every first Friday of the month, they do this huge thing where artists will sell their paintings. They'd have galleries open. They'd have food trucks. And that was something that was always really cool. And as locals of Vegas, we didn't really go to the Strip or do anything like that. So to be able to experience that, I think we might have taken it for granted while living there. But it is one really cool aspect that we got to see. And I haven't really seen anything at least of that scale here.
I was gonna say they have one like art festival that I know of, and it's like, I think it's like the end of June, but you guys should go. It's actually pretty cool. It's in Pittsburgh, just like downtown. But there's a guy that I like. I don't know if you've ever heard of Baron Batch, but he does.
I don't think so.
He actually used to play for the Steelers, and now he's an artist. And I always like to buy his stuff when he's at the art fest. So
that's cool. Really cool.
And my sister bought me a few pieces from him. Brad's wife. My sister, she bought me every year she buys me something cool from like an artist. Right now, I love like Greg Mike. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a mural artist in Atlanta, and he does super cool stuff too. But yeah, that's like the only thing I really know about in Pittsburgh is the art fest that they do once a year. Besides that, I don't know how big the art scene really is here. There's more Steeler fans than there are art fans out here.
Yeah, I will say there's a lot more people who are super into like, this might be controversial, like weird tasting food and
it's true.
And drinking. Oh my gosh. When we moved here, it's like the sport. And I actually heard someone else, it was like a quick video that I came across on my Instagram. I scrolled and this guy said, man, Pennsylvanians are just built differently, because he was on the turnpike and he was coming to pick something up. He pulled up to a stoplight and the guy, he looks over to his left and there's a guy sitting there, same time. He's waiting for his light to turn green to make a left. And he just stares the guy in his face, pulls out a Miller Lite, cracks it open, crushes it.
Oh my God.
Slams the can and throws it into his passenger seat and just drives away as the light turns green. And the guy was like, what?
That's crazy.
So
I feel like I probably know the guy you're talking about.
It's like, oh no, that was on camera? Yeah.
That's wild.
That was one thing. Like we would go to the gas station and be like, you can get a lit slushie. This is so weird.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. The slushies. Yeah.
That's not something that we have in Vegas, but I think it's a good thing because people are already wild there.
Yeah, dude, the slushies, you can get like, they have like drive-throughs and you can get them. And all they do is put like a little sticker on the straw because you're not supposed to drink and drive. And I told the man, I was like, how effective is this supposed to be? Like now it's like an alcoholic person buys one of these and they're not going to like just remove the sticker.
Well, I'll tell you, my intro to PA is, we get into town, we get into our house and everything, and we roll up to Get Go, which, made to order food, all those things. They don't have that out west. It's pretty cool. I'm vibing. Now I'm in line, and this lady gets, I'm like, oh, they get Slurpees, but they're behind the counter. That's odd. And I'm starting to put it together, and this like lady with her 4 kids gets the biggest Slurpee you've ever seen.
That's hilarious.
Pops the top and just starts slurping it, hops in her minivan and drives off. And I'm like, dude, PA, it's like, there's no rules out here. People are about it. So
PA is wild. What do you think about the drivers out here?
Way better than Vegas.
Really?
And it's not even close.
Dang.
Yeah,
It
Vegas
is really bad out there.
Yeah. brace yourself.
Yeah.
The only place worse than Vegas is Denver, Colorado.
Gotcha.
For sure. They're actually crazy.
I've never been to Denver.
Yeah.
Maybe I
But
will.
PA is unique. Are you from born and raised here?
So I was born in Boston, moved here when I was 7, so raised here, but born in Boston. So everything you're saying about like the food and like things like that, like I was old enough to know that the food was not as good here.
Yes.
Put it that way.
That's been a realization for us too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're in Greensburg, which I would assume is probably similar in size to Beaver, but obviously
Probably.
it's not Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah.
It's like not a major city. You don't have like
Yeah.
really good ramen and really good sushi and all these things. It's like you got mom and pop burger stand and like, good luck. Hopefully it's good.
Exactly.
So thankfully we've been able to find some gyms, but it was, we were a little bit spoiled.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I believe it.
But yeah, different. Oh yeah, I was going to say driving in PA. That was another thing. So the drivers are better, but our realization of what a Pittsburgh left is came really quick. Because you're like, just, I don't know, just driving Miss Daisy, and we're driving forward, and like, you just take, if you're first in the left lane, you make the rules. So they haul across the left lane, and I'm honking, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, people keep doing this. And finally it took somebody in the passenger seat who's from here, who's like, oh yeah, that's a Pittsburgh left. Like this is, we make the rules. And I still don't do it. I'm still uncomfortable with it. But
yeah, people are wild. When you drive in Beaver County, you'll find that like any 4-way stop sign, literally everyone will just be like waving each other on, and it makes me so mad. I'm like, if you just went the time you were supposed to go, everything would have been so much faster.
Yep. Well, and so we moved to Greensburg without any context. So Jez is like, yeah, it's like a small town.
Yeah.
Because she had came here, growing up, and I'm like, I'm just here for the adventure of life. Let's show up. So I was picturing a town like that where it's like, yeah, we're at the stop sign. No, you go. I'm like, yes, I want that, dude. I want to like wave at people and like everybody knows each other. Yeah. And then that's my experience. People are flying across the intersection. I'm like, oh, what did he sign up for?
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So speaking of Denver, Las Vegas, I know you guys are like traveling. You promote yourself as traveling photographers. Yeah. What are some of your favorite destinations that you've been to?
Favorite destinations? Lake Tahoe is definitely up there. Lake Tahoe was just, I only got to see a portion of it, but it was so vast and just so gorgeous. And the scenery is beautiful. The weather was amazing. Vegas is actually a really nice place to photograph. I don't personally like photographing in the city, but more outskirts, Red Rock Canyon, it's probably one of my top places. And I would say our editing style has really been inspired by that.
Gotcha.
The neutrals of the desert, the warmth of the desert. And I actually didn't realize that that's what our editing style was inspired by until I went back and, anywhere that you photograph it, you create your own preset and you throw it on the photo, and everything's going to be different, and every scenery photographs differently. Man, there's nothing like the West Coast. It just photographs so much better for whatever reason. And then I come back to the tree, like all the greens. I don't know. There's something about PA probably specifically. I'm just like, oh man. Which is still a beautiful place here because it's so green and lush. But there's just something about the neutrals and the warmth where it just makes your subject pop really well. And so there is no distraction in the photo except just, and it feels very vast too. You have someone who's in front of the mountains and it's just this huge desert behind them is something breathtaking about it. Yeah, Dominican Republic's been a really nice one. I just did a wedding in Florida in November, and that was really cool.
Nice.
Never been to Florida. And it was a winter wedding, so I don't know how I feel about it in the summer. It might be a little too hot, too many bugs, but it wasn't too bad. It was really pretty. Oh yeah, I will say New York Fashion Week is definitely up there too. Yeah. New York in general, we're not, I want to say we're pretty against ever moving into the city again, except for New York. I keep telling Noah, like, we need to, for a season, just move to Manhattan because it is everything that the movies make it out to be. Sometimes you go to a city and you say, oh, this place sucks. Like, for us, at least, that's how Vegas feels, but it's probably because we were locals. And going to New York, it just was like, oh my gosh, all the hustle and bustle and the glam. And on top of that, to be able to experience in such an intimate setting with other creatives in such a huge way, because it was at New York Bridal Fashion Week. It was just an experience that's unexplainable. It was really cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So since you're like doing these projects in all these different states, how are you getting like, what are you doing to like get clients in these different areas?
A lot of it, I will say, is word of mouth, which is kind of crazy because a lot of these places we don't travel too often, and maybe we've done 1 or 2 sessions. Other than Vegas, I think Vegas and Pennsylvania are the 2 places that we'll book out the most, just because that's where we reside. We still have family in Vegas, so I'll go out there sometimes 4 to 5 times a year, and we go there at least once a year together for Thanksgiving.
Nice.
And so at least in those 2 places, we already know people. But
that makes sense.
when we travel, we'll post like, hey, here's our travel dates. You won't have to pay a travel fee, and you'll just be paying for our session rate. And so like crazy enough, that happens to work out. Or we know people who are like, hey, like my friend would love to do a session. What does that look like to get that started with you? And other than that, just really advertising on social media. And yeah.
So I found you guys on Threads, right? So what's your experience been like using Threads?
So I do all the social media. So that's why Noah's like, he has
In the back.
Yeah, he has no idea what happens.
All I was just say is this is the first business we've had where we're not like, let's be super heavy on marketing. Let's do all the right things. Let's hit all the niches. Let's hit all the keywords. This is the first one where we're like, let's take a deep breath. Let's create something that we're really genuine about. Let's make really genuine relationships with people, and let's let it happen supernaturally. So this is sort of the first time, and it's the opposite of what all the gurus will say to do. And there's certain businesses where, like, this, you have to do the right marketing, you have to have the right ads, and it's super key and important for certain niches.
Yeah.
But this is one where it's like, at least in this season, we've decided, instead of taking the traditional marketing route, it's let's invest all of that energy, let's invest all of that time into the actual craft, into building relationships. And let's be faithful in that, and let's work as if we're, with our faith, working as if we're working unto Christ. Like, let's do everything to the best of our ability, and let's let that flow through our work. And then what that's translated into is like, we do a wedding for so-and-so. They have a cousin that lives in New York. They have a friend that lives in California, and then we do work for them. And then they have friends, we have stuff that might happen in Germany now. And so it's just growing really naturally. And that seems like the industry allows for that, versus if you're selling a product. So again, I don't know if it'll always be that case. It probably won't, but I just wanted to kind of touch on that because we took a different approach to this than is, I think, normal and what we've done previous. And it's more of just hands off, really focus on the work, really focus on being diligent and creating something beautiful and letting it flourish. So
that's awesome.
Now you can answer
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Noah was saying, is it's allowed our business to grow organically and at a really nice pace. I think in the beginning, you start out slower, and you start out, in the beginning, like, hey, we're going to do these really cheap sessions. We're going to do a lot of styled sessions. We're going to ask a lot of people, hey, do you want to model? We just want to get our feet, in the door. And that was something that we really took into consideration, is when we started this business, we said, we don't want to just be another photographer who buys a preset from another photographer and slaps it on, and it's like, oh, this is a pretty picture. I truly believe anyone can take a really pretty picture, but I think it's people who are able to notice, in a creative aspect, but 2, can make someone feel the photo, even if they don't know that person who's in the photo. Yeah. And this isn't true for all styles of photography, but specifically just for weddings. It's something for us, because relationships are so high on our value system, is it's created a lot of really great friends. We won't take on clients that we couldn't see ourselves being friends with. Yep. And so that makes our job a lot more easier. It makes it a lot more enjoyable. Yeah. Sure. And then when you deliver the photos, it's like, oh my gosh, this is a memory that not only you get to have for the rest of your life that we created, but also we get to be a part of that and to be a part of a friend's memory. It's just like something really special.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love to. I was going to ask you at one point how you guys got your style, because obviously if you look at you have a very distinct style, and I think it's super cool what you guys are doing, and cool the stance that you said you guys are taking for your business. And definitely agree with you about the clients.
Yeah.
I've taken on clients before. None of them are watching this anyway, so I wish I did not take them on as clients. So it's definitely very wise, especially when you're like first starting out, like you guys were talking about. Like, it's hard not to have the mindset of just like, I'll take anything like at this point to make a couple bucks or whatever. But that's great advice to like definitely like vet, I guess you'd say, vet your clients. And like what I told Amanda, this was a long time ago when she was like applying for that job at the Marriott. And I always say, like, my advice to people that are going on like a job interview, you should be interviewing the job interviewer more than they're interviewing you, because they need you a lot more than you need them.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes the same with the clients. I feel like I learned to not only let them interview me, but there's a lot of questions that I have to ask as well to make sure that it's going to be a good partnership.
Right.
But
well, at the end of the day, it makes the job easier.
Yeah,
it makes them more enjoyable. It's never easy money.
Yeah.
It's, I mean,
yeah.
this job's either going to be way more enjoyable and I'm still going to work really hard to get your galleries out, or I could, by us choose taking on a client just because, we have this date filled and we want to take on another wedding client, we could make that one gallery hell, and the possibility of them coming back and saying, I don't like the coloring, I don't like this, I don't like that. And then at the end of the day, maybe having to give them a refund or something crazy. So that's definitely something that we took into consideration when starting. And yeah, our style has evolved drastically. Like if you go all the way down to the bottom of our social media, which I've heavily
it's like
debated
the abyss.
To just like delete it or at least archive it, because I'm like, please don't look at it. It's so embarrassing. But I feel like if you don't feel embarrassed by your old work, are you actually growing? Like, are you doing something? Are you evolving? Are you constantly learning and growing? I think when we start to do things out of passion, then it becomes, that's when burnout happens, because you're going to have to grind it no matter what you do. But at least if you're doing out of passion and love, it's like, I don't feel that burnout. But
exactly.
Yeah, it's been really cool to just kind of see it evolve. We created a preset before we even started doing photo. And we're like, okay, we still want to stay in the vintage. We want the photo to look vintage. Yeah, preset, for those people who don't know, is just essentially, I guess you could say it's like a color coding that I could copy and paste and put it onto a photo. So take a photo, the photo that comes out of the camera is what we call raw, and it would just be pretty true to color. So what you see with your eye. But in order to give it, I guess a lot of people call it a filter, but photographers call it a preset, and it's a lot more, I guess, it's not as simple as it looks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Especially yeah, exactly. So we started out with a very like vintage nostalgic look that looked almost out of a film camera. And it really, I want to say it still kind of looks that way, but it's drastically changed, which is really fun because it's evolved with our style of photographing, our style of, or the type of clientele we take on now, the type of photographing that we do. And it makes the job so much more enjoyable because you're like, oh my gosh, look at this. Like, that's the shot and the preset. I don't know. I feel like there's just something about being able to take a photo, you put your coloring on it, and you look at it and you say, wow, like that is just amazing. I'm obsessed with it. So, yeah.
So I know you guys shoot with Sony. So
yeah.
Why did you choose Sony? Because I'm a Sony guy too.
Yeah. So we went from a Nikon D3200 crop sensor. Basically, it's not a great camera. It's like, if you're just out there taking pictures on a trip, it's great. But for us, we started taking photos and we were looking at a lot of Canons. I've shot on Canon before. We both have shot on Canon. I was like, oh, I really like the quality of the photo, but I was like, why is this body so huge? Looked at the Sony, and the first Sony camera that we got was the A7 III. Compared, I can't remember what Canon body we were looking at, but the cost was drastically different. The Sony does better in low light. It was a smaller body. It was more compact. And if we wanted to use third-party lenses, it was more feasible to be able to do that, as opposed with Canon, you can't always do that. So that was the main reasons why. And when we did a lot of research, most people were saying, I mean, this is a great camera across the board for whatever kind of photography you were doing. And if we wanted to get into video, which was something we kind of talked about in the beginning, it would be a great option for hybrid shooting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very similar to why I chose mine. So what's filming me right now is the Sony A7 IV, and that's a large, being a hybrid, where I could do really nice photo, very nice video. That's why I chose Sony as well. The A7 IV specifically. Are you still shooting with the A7 III, or did you upgrade?
So we've upgraded. We're on an A7R5 now.
Nice.
And same reason. It's a really good hybrid camera. You get also to both worlds. But you touched on style, and I wanted to, if I could jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
Is everybody creates their own style, and photography is cool because a lot of that's done for you in a camera. Like a layman could take a picture with an A7R5 in like a really quality lens, and it looks good.
Yeah,
actually. And we just felt like so the evolution of our sort of journey, like Jez mentioned, is like we got an opportunity to be models for a gig, and it was like, I felt like we were scamming the system because, like, well, Jez is beautiful. I just look like a dude. But like we get done, right? And people are like, here's $300. And we're like, we just kind of sat there for an hour. Like, I could get it if like you want Jez to be a model, like that makes sense. But I'm like, I felt like I scammed the system because, you know, I worked a full day for 8 hours and I made X amount of dollars. And then I got off and worked for 1 hour, which is essentially stand here, look over here, put your arm around your wife, like hang out like you're on a date. It's like, here's $300 cash. And it's like, oh,
yeah, way better.
This is great. So then by that point on, we're models, which is great for me because I tell everybody I'm a model. It's obvious, you know. But it started there, and then we started to realize the work that the photographers were doing. We're looking at that, and we're like, actually, it's super feasible, right? Like you see a painter, somebody who's painted for 20 years, and you're like, oof, like that's heavy, you know, like that's requires so much effort and time to get there. It feels like the learning curve to just even create something aesthetic is 3 years of like painting nonstop to create a style. So we looked at photography as like it didn't seem like the learning curve was that high, and we already had a DSLR camera, so we jumped in with that camera and started taking pictures. And then what helped us was we started doing a lot of second shooting. So a lot of like, after we started to take pictures and get used to it and learn the science of it all, because we found out pretty quickly, there is a learning curve. You have to understand, a lot about the camera and about lighting. And a lot of times, especially with weddings, like you only have one chance to get that shot,
yeah, exactly.
right? And then if you miss it, you're screwed.
Everyone is sad.
Yes. So then it transitioned to doing a lot of second shooting, which we call it is essentially getting paid to learn about a new industry or getting paid to learn a new skill. And then for a while, we just did a lot of free stuff. And then it transitioned into, so we were business-minded before, and we went through a really big change in life, which would take hours to kind of get into and unpack. But it was a really heavy change, and it sort of is what prompted us to move across the country and try something new. But we went from this frame of mind where we were super business-minded, and our whole focus in life was to get control of time and money. We recognized that life is sort of like a game. And if you want to make really independent choices, you have to consult money before you can make that. How many kids do you want? Well, you can't have 6 if you work at Taco Bell, right?
True.
Or you could, but it's going to be really heavy. So
Yeah, exactly.
a lot of leftover Taco Bell. Maybe have some smoggy kids.
That's hilarious.
But we recognize that pretty quickly, and early on is like, hey, the nature of this life that we currently live, whether I agree with it or not, is that you have to consult money if you want to make a lot of these decisions. Where are you going to live? What car are you going to drive? What, if you're going to have kids, how big your family, all of these things. So we were really in that mindset for probably about 5 years, and then went through a big life change. And then came out here with more of a perspective of like, what are all the things that we say we believe in, and why is that? And let's actually determine what those things mean. So for us, that was a walk with God. So we said we had a faith, we believe in these things, right? And so it's like, it started with our mouth, we said these things, and then it went to our head, where we went through a season of life where we're actually understanding the Bible, and we're developing faith, and we're learning about other faiths, and we're determining, well, if the Bible is true, why is that? It's not because somebody told us, but it's because we're learning about it. And then we went through trials in life, which made those words that we said either true or false, right? Like, live out the things that you said. And so then that's when it became real. So we had a heart change throughout the 5 years, right? And so now it's transitioned, right? We're in a season of life where it's not about making money, but we also are quite ambitious people by nature. So now we're entering a venture that could turn into being money driven again. And we can see that, but now we're entering it with a new frame of mind and really a new heart, if you will. So now we're entering this thing that we're not going, hey, we're going to be photographers and it's going to be a business for us. We're entering it as like, hey, if we can be used in this area by God to make a good impression on people, to be a part of our community, to develop relationships, let's do that. So that's how it started. And so that's what's helped influence our style a lot, because it wasn't like, hey, let's Google what's the best preset for weddings in 2021 or whatever it is, and then just use that and buy a good camera and start doing Facebook and Instagram ads and run a business. We could do that. Sure. We'd be good at it. It'd be fine. But we said, let's create something beautiful. So we started from nothing in a bad camera, and we learned how to tweak lights. And so like it means a lot when you are like, hey, I recognize your style and it's really cool. Like, thank you. Right. Because that's actually part of the artist's stroke. And so what that's translated into now is, as we meet couples, like, one of the questions on our questionnaire is like, have you reviewed our work? And if they say no, then we're like, hey, let's not have a meeting. Go review our work. We'll send you some galleries, because we're not going to change our work. It's distinct and it's unique and it's evolving, but it's not true to color. And if you want that, if you want someone who's just going to take a really, really beautiful photo, it's true to color, we have some really great friends that do that. We can give you 10 recommendations.
Yeah.
So what it's evolved into is creating really cool relationships where now people reach out, and like, we get to have different conversations than a lot of people, because some people are like, oh man, I just met with a couple. I'm the 6th photographer they've met with, and it's like really heavy because, you know, they're bouncing back. We don't have that a lot, because usually people come to us and are like, we love your style. We love that you're able to capture this moment and it feels timeless and it feels like a movie. That's what we love. Yeah, and so like, cool. It's really opened up and created a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. I think you guys are definitely on the right track. I mean, I've been telling people a lot lately, with social media and like AI and like all these things, like the only thing that people can't replicate is like you as a person. So intertwining that with your photography and like staying true to like who you guys are and being like, no, this is like our style. Even if you want it to look like this, just go with someone else, because that's not who we are. I think that's super powerful and like puts you like in the driver's seat, I guess, in a way. Yeah. That's like I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, it gives us it does give us a layer of peace, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to get to, like that piece, because you guys are like leading it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like in movies, certain directors have certain styles, like a Wes Anderson. You know what you're getting. It's a Wes Anderson. It's like somebody be like, go to Wes Anderson, I have this idea for a project. It's going to come out as a Wes Anderson film.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be a Martin Scorsese film. Like, they have their thing. And so, and you do photo, you do video, you do all this marketing thing. What makes you different in marketing? Is it that you're really efficient? Is it that you're the cheapest? Is it that you just have a unique style? And so you have to define that and develop that. And as a business owner,
exactly,
it takes time. You have to go fail at like a bunch of different things to realize where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And like, sometimes you have to get caught with your pants down, and you have to get exposed and realize that you don't know what you're doing, and this isn't your style, and you're totally in the wrong lane. And it's like, I think maybe that's where you get an opportunity to become a little bit more wise.
Yeah.
In your response to that.
No, for sure.
Try it.
No, that's very, very true. failure is almost every day in entrepreneurship. That's for sure.
Yes.
So I got a couple more questions for you guys. The first one is, if someone's watching this and they're thinking about going into business with like the person they're coupled up with,
Yeah.
what would your advice be?
Like a spouse?
Yeah, let's assume that they're married. Yeah.
Okay. Or just a significant other.
We'll just assume they're married since you guys are married and I'm married. So
Yeah. Generalizations are hard.
Yeah.
To be honest. But the nature of every healthy relationship is communication and just having really, really gracious boundaries. And it can't just be boundaries without grace, right? Like it has to be gracious boundaries. And part of that comes from knowing each other, like just like you and your wife, just like Jez and I, is like we've been together for so long. I know exactly what is going to tick Jez off, and I can use that to hurt her.
Yeah.
And I can use that to help her, right? But in the end, I know no matter what, the bedrock of the conversations we have, the actions we take, is that Jez and I are on a team. So if I take an action, even if it feels good for me in the moment, if I know that it doesn't affect the team positively, don't take the action. Don't make that move, right?
Yeah.
Because we're on the same team. So like, I guess my advice to people who, if they were to go in business, you be steady in your relationship. Like you better have some really healthy boundaries, and you better have a relationship that's filled with grace and with love, because trials happen and you go, this person they know your buttons, right? You're like, they're actively pressing the buttons.
Yeah.
They know will offend me, but that might happen for a season. But I think that, let's see, what would my advice be? You got to be at a certain place, I think, before you go into business with each other, because it's going to be really full of trials, and it's also not for everybody. So if you decide that, you know, the husband or the wife or the spouse or whatever it is maybe this is their calling, and it's not the other person's calling. Part of that relationship is to let them pursue that and to support them.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have areas of life, things I'm really passionate about that Jez cares not at all about.
Yeah.
And vice versa, things that Jez is super passionate about and I'm not at all. And so if we were to try to go into business with something that's just her passion, we could still go into business together, but it might look a little bit different than the one that we're in, where we're both all in. So yeah, be in a healthy place probably would be my advice. Have people around you that really care about you. So you need different levels of relationship. You need relationships that pour into you. You need relationships that you pour into. And then you have to have relationships that are also eye to eye as well.
Yeah.
And probably seek a lot of those out. People who are 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road in the marriage area of life and the business area of life, have people like you and I and your wife and Jez, where we're sort of similar areas where we can see eye to eye and we can laugh and go, oh my gosh, I just made this crazy blunder. I don't know what I'm doing. And also have people in your life that you're pouring into.
Yeah.
Right. Like in a case where somebody's coming to you and asking that question, you can say, I've got 7 years of experience, 10 years of experience. Let me pour into you.
Yeah.
So I think having solid relationships as well, your community.
Yeah.
But Jez probably has sage advice.
Your answer, the beginning of that, you mentioned communication, which I'd say is definitely huge. I feel like 95% of the things that we get mad about, or mostly Amanda getting mad at me because I'm a bad communicator sometimes, is just lack of communication. Like even today, great example, we were doing a video that I told her I was making her do. I was doing too. And I didn't give her this, like, we do something like, it was a script, but I was like, make it your own kind of thing. But I didn't like give it to her until like we were like filming it. And then she had to take a bunch of takes, and then she was just like mad at me. Like it wasn't like a big fight, but great example of lack of communication. And I was like, I know I should have got you this literally a week ago. I apologize. But so
like, that's the key right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, she's your teammate, right? So she might lash out at you and you're like despise her for the next week, but it's super unproductive, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's super effective for you to be like, hey, I recognize this is an area where I dropped the ball. What's more important than this business that we're doing, what's more important than the work we did today, is that I love you.
Yeah.
And that we're on the same team. It's like that moment right there is like, that's what being a team is.
Exactly. And that's actually the thought behind the jerseys, is because we were talking, I don't remember when it was, but it was like summertime. And I was like, wanted to put a really, really strong emphasis on being a team, teamwork, and not even just me and her, but like anyone who's involved with Shoot Media. So that's why we got the jerseys. We're balling on a budget. So just me and Amanda have them right now, but we're getting more for everyone.
I love it.
Yeah. So Brad will have his soon.
I'll rock it, dude. I love it.
Let's go.
Well, then let's turn the tables if we could. Same question to you.
Yeah.
And a hypothetical, Jez and I are just like, hey, we're really entrepreneurial. We're gung-ho about life. We're ambitious. Should we go into business together? What's your advice to us as a young couple or a young couple?
That's a great question. I think I would start off by asking them, assuming I have a good amount of time to talk to the person,
Yes.
I would start out first seeing where they're at, just like on a regular relationship. Like, how are you guys doing as a couple? And like, do you guys have the same views, same beliefs, same faith? Like, you were talking about faith a lot, and like me and Amanda share the same faith. Like, we're both Christians, and like we literally met at a church camp. That's how we met. So that's a very strong foundation that we had, like, just in general. Like, so I guess foundation, I would ask them where their foundation is and like where they're currently at. And then if they have a good foundation and they have a really good relationship with each other, then I would ask them what they think about being with your partner basically 24/7, because you're basically with your partner 24/7. And if they like the idea of that, then I would go into more of the business side of things and like more, okay, what are your skills? What are her skills? What do you guys like to do? And then I guess after those series of questions, I would kind of let them come to the realization or answer the question for themselves. Because I always say, I think a lot of times we ask questions that we already have answers to. We just don't ask ourselves the right questions, or we're not having the right people ask us the questions that we need to bring out those answers. So in a roundabout way, I guess I don't even know if that's really advice, but get someone that can ask you the right questions. And if you don't, I think there's a lot. I'm trying to think of how I want to kind of pull all those thoughts together. If you're a Christian, I'd say you could talk to like a pastor or something like that too. Like, we're really close to our pastors and youth pastors.
Nice.
Like, and we always consult with them about like even things like this.
Yes.
So someone that's a mentor to you, or find a mentor. I guess I'd say, even if you're not a Christian, like find someone that you can talk to and ask you those hard questions that you might not be asking yourself.
Yeah, it's like, also disclaimer, look at the fruit on their tree.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, the guy who has the most opinions about money is the hobo, is the broke out of the street. It's like, go ask your brokest friend. He'll have the most opinions about money.
Yeah.
So yeah, look at the fruit on the tree.
Yeah.
But it's also, I just wanted to touch on it because I think you'll probably feel the same, is it's like also really difficult, but one of the most beautiful things ever.
Yeah.
Because when you go into business and you get to see the person you're in love with really challenged with something and overcome it, it makes you admire them so much more. So like this whole adventure, all the time, there's little things that Jez does, and I'm like, it makes my admiration for her grow even more. Yeah. Because just to see them grow through trials, and it's the person that you love, it's your best friend. So to be hand in hand with that and to see her grow it's phenomenal. It's beautiful, and it adds to the love of the life that we live and the products that we get to create. Yeah. And it's so fun to share the victories too. That's true. It's very fun to share. You hit the nail on the head. It's like, you're my best friend. Who else would I want to do this with? Yeah, exactly. Kind of like what I said at the beginning, when people would be like, why are you always with men? I'm like, why would I not always be with a man if that's an option? Yes. But I think, I feel like this has been an awesome episode. And I have one last question I want to ask you guys specifically. Is there something that I didn't ask you that I should have during this interview? Yeah, I think we entered it to have a conversation and build a new friendship and answer questions. I think you're doing awesome. And we're excited for you guys. We're excited to get to know you better and to just have an opportunity to be here and chat, whatever comes out of it, whether it's someone reaches out to us. What would I think be really beautiful is one of those couples that is like, hey, we'd love to go into business, but we don't know what the heck we're doing or where to start. Yeah. I think if that's what came out of this, if they reach out to you or to us and they're like, hey, we don't know what to do, like, we'd love to invite, like, that's the relationship, like, that's beautiful. So yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's been really enjoyable. That's a perfect segue into tell the audience where they can find you and how they can contact you, whether it's for advice or if it's for photography.
Yeah, so you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Threads under the Mallets, and our website is themallets.com. Pretty simple, but yeah. Oh, the Mallets, Mallets. I know you want to say Mallets, but it's Mallet. It's
way fancier than Mallets. Come on, guys. Well, thank you guys so much, Noah and Jez. It was awesome having you here. Thanks for traveling from Greensburg. We'll say you traveled from Las Vegas for this. Yo, they came all the way from Las Vegas. So thank you guys so much for being here. And thank you guys, everyone that's watching the Yen podcast. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support. And if you're not subscribed already, subscribe.